All right, guys, welcome back. We're gonna go ahead and get the bucket um, and the wires and everything situated and get the actuators done. So I'll show you guys how I do it and how to get everything installed here. So let's go ahead and start with, we're gonna raise this arm up, and I'll show you guys how I kind of do that real quick. All right, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and splice our actuator wires here, and then we're gonna tie them together, and then before we wire them up to the ESC, we're gonna raise and lift them up. So hopefully I can get, I highly doubt I'll be able to get that in there. So we'll get our handy dandy plastic cutters / wire strippers. Probably should have added these wires before I did the what's it called, but this wire that comes with these actuators is so sensitive. You kind of barely have to cut these sides and then pull up like I showed you guys on the silicone. You want to be very careful not to cut it, especially if you're in a situation like I am here, where we're very limited on what we have. Go on. Hopefully I didn't take any wires. No, clean strip. Nice. Nice. Looking at that a little bit. Alright, let's get this other side done. What are we doing? Nope. Yeah, vicious to me. I'm going to super sensitive wire though, just to see on the wire areas. Okay, so straighten out our wire. Alright, make sure you guys are ready. So I get this wire here. I'm going to get one more. Oops. Alright, you're going to get your flux. It's good stuff here. This is electrical flux. And you're going to get your wires nice and goopy. You don't have to get it like all over like I did that first one, but we'll get it. And take some of that off, put it on. Alright, get your tip. Make sure it's nice and clean. Get your sponge. Make sure your sponge has some good moisture to it. Alright. Grab your solder. Go ahead and touch that tip. And solder is awesome because you can bend it to do these weird corners. Alright. So touch that wire, let that flux melt, and then go ahead and touch it. Same thing over here, nice and touch. Alright, let's go ahead and grab some solder, bend it around this corner. Boom, boom. Super, super easy. Don't be afraid of the solder. And just because I have this one over here, now it looks all fancy and such. You don't need to have something like this. This is just something I like. It gets hot really quick. It's about 80 bucks as a solder station on Amazon, and I thought it was really nice. Definitely an upgrade from those ones that you get for 20 bucks, but you definitely don't need it unless you're doing a lot of these builds and things like that. So okay, so we got those leads nicely set up. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and extend them, and we're not going to extend them very long. Probably not even that long. We'll probably go just that much. They don't need to be really long. Just enough to be able to kind of tuck your wires up in there. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and trash that one, and we're going to use this guy. This one that I messed up earlier. I knew I'd find a place for it. Alright, we have that one already set up, so let's go ahead and get this one nicely done. And before I split those apart, let's go ahead and strip them. mean, these strippers are just the bee's knees. Twist your wires. I just like to twist the ends because it makes it a little sturdier when you're dipping inside of the flux here. I think I got this flux at a store, like a local store here. So we'll hang it over the edge there. Grab our solder this good stuff. Lean here, I usually lean my head out of the way too, so that smoke doesn't get all up in my face. You don't need much on there. You just need to make it look like it's all just silver. Okay, so let's go and pull this apart a little bit more. And you already know it. Of course, we're gonna need some heat shrink. And what would we be without heat shrink? So we're gonna need 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna need 8 of them. So let's see if I can get 8 out of this. These ones I'm gonna make a little shorter. We're probably like 3/8, so maybe around 9 millimeter ish. Looking more like 10, aren't they? Oh no. I don't think I'll get 3 out of that, so we're just gonna have to call that. Grab a little bit more. Okay, so let's slide the heat shrink on one side, or on both wires, but one side of where they're gonna go. Alright, and then what I do, I know you guys saw this in the last video, but get a good amount, not a good amount, but enough to, like the tip on here is flat, and enough to make it look curved. And then we'll go ahead and get it all these soldered up real quick. Line it up. Let me see if I can get a little bit better angle on this. So what I'll do is line it up, make sure it's like nice and straight or vertical with each other, and then we'll just tap one of the wires. You only need it there for a second. And there, that looks great. We got a strand out there and we'll cut that off. All right, we'll do the same thing with the red. Just a quick touch. You don't want to leave it on there too long. If you leave it on there too long, the wires get too hot, and then your heat shrink, it shrinks. But you know what, that strand, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that strand probably won't bother us. So what we'll do is we'll grab our heat shrink and we'll slide it down over it. And sometimes you got to spin it to get it past that wire or that sleeve. Do the same thing with both of them. So that looks good right there. So then you grab your handy dandy lighter. If you don't have a lighter, you can always use your soldering gun. All you got to do is, on the back end of that tip, just rub it on here. You can even rub the tip on there if you want, it doesn't matter. All right, rub it all over between back side, bottom, blah blah blah. And that smoke you're seeing is just actually the flux that's on that wire. So it looks good. Wipe it off. Always wipe off your soldering tip. And I'll just because I have the lighter, I'm gonna do it. All right. And then we'll do the same thing on this other one. We'll grab 2 of our heat shrink here. Spread it apart, bring them down, looking good. We'll grab a little bit of solder, just enough to bulge that tip, remember, don't touch your wires. And we'll make sure that we're doing the same thing that we did on this other side. So we went black to black, and then striped to red. You're just going to touch it. Just touch it. And you can see some of that extra on there. We're going to cut that off, because that's not going to fit inside the heat shrink. So we'll do the same thing here, just touch it. And then I'll blow on it sometimes. If I have to keep it there longer than a second or two, we'll blow on it. Okay, so let's slide this heat shrink down. Let's just see if we can actually get it to go over. So the red one we can. Fat hand is in the way. So we got a little extra right here. And I'm just going to cut it off. And we'll go ahead and slide it, our heat shrink down. Sorry about the angle. That feels good. And go ahead and heat her up. Bada bing, bada boom. Excuse me. So now we know those are done. Not done, but excuse me, something in my throat. Okay, so they're not done, but they're gonna allow us to test. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna cut these soldered ends off. And we'll actually make these the same length. So we're gonna cut these ends off. I don't want those. We'll strip them one more time. And this is just for testing, because we gotta lift this arm up. That's the main reason why we extended these wires here. All right. So we extended those. Just twist them up, get them all nice. All right. And we're gonna put the two together. So you're gonna get your striped or your black to black. Go ahead and put your black to black, twist them together. So it looks like that. Something like that. Alright. And that'll be perfect. So then what we'll do is we'll grab our battery here and we'll make sure the arms are working properly. Beautiful. They stop when they need to stop. Of course, they're actuators. Just go up. Beautiful. Alright. So now you can see what needs to be done, or what I was talking about earlier as far as that wire, how stretched out it is. So what I'll do is I'll pull a little bit on it just to give me a little bit of slack. Make sure I have some under here. Got plenty. So we'll pull on it a little bit. Just give me a little bit, because this is max and that's as much as it'll go. So that's what you want here. Now you got this guy over here, it's kind of hidden. Really pulling on it. So let's grab some. There you go. Looks good right there. Actually, this one isn't on there right. So I'm going to fix that real quick by unscrewing this. And we're going to move that wire behind that actuator. We don't want it in front. Call that the pinch zone. Alright, so slide that out. You might have to pick up a little bit on it. Alright, that's not working. going to separate these wires, and I'm going to bring this actuator down. Enough to get that wire behind it. Like that. That's what you want. And then we know we need to go max all the way. So we'll go all the way back out. Ooh. So that's max. Let's go ahead and get that screwed back in. All right. Okay, so we can leave those apart anyways. We're gonna end up soldering them together, those wire leads. So we know we have enough wire for everything back here, and enough to kind of tuck it back underneath these motors here in this space, right under here. You guys can see that, yeah, underneath this guy right here. Both of those really. We got enough space to tuck those in. But right now, we're gonna go ahead and work on our, what are they freaking called? We're gonna go ahead and work on our limit switches. So let me go get the. Okay, so we're back. We got the arm up. Got everything else pretty much built. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and start attaching the motors, the little N20s, to our arms. And I was reason why there was like a slight pause or switch over from the video or from the first clip that I started doing earlier. I was looking for these end stops, and then I was looking for the diodes that I need. I cannot find my diodes, so I'll have to order some more. I usually run my skid steer without these because I'm pretty good at remembering where the end needs to be. But if you guys were to go ahead and install your end stops, just know that they one goes up in here. You're gonna wire it first. You're gonna go ahead and stick it up in here, and then I use hot glue. So what I'll end up doing is putting a little bit of hot glue up in this channel here after you wire this, and then just go ahead and stick this right up inside there, and it should sit just like that. And then that'll be for your bucket curl going inward. And then the other one, excuse me, the other one actually goes right here, or it's supposed to go right there, and then that'll stop it from, or I'm sorry, it goes up. Sorry about that. So the bucket, when it curls, it hits that. Unfortunately, these arms, I don't know why I didn't print them, but these arms don't have the hole for this end stop. So you will find a drill template in the files, the updated files, and you can go ahead and drill that out to go ahead and get yours done. But for this video, we're not going to do that. Again, I don't have those diodes, so we'll go ahead and set these to the side, and then what we'll do is we'll start getting these installed. Excuse me. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these wires here and then stick them in. But essentially how this works is you're gonna go ahead and get your shaft lined up with the hole here. Let's see, I'm just gonna spin it until it drops in, and there's that. So that's in there now. And then what you'll do is, I didn't have any small
nuts for this. So I grabbed a self-tapping screw and I cut it down to 6 millimeter, and then that's what I'm using here. So you would just go ahead and screw that in until it bottoms out, and then there you go, and that's nice and locked in. So we'll go ahead and get this. Uh-oh, I guess I cut one, or I didn't cut one, so we'll have to cut it again. When I cut these, I just grabbed some nail cutters here, and then we'll go down to 6. Let's see where it's at. All right, so it's about 2 threads up. So there's that. Double check on the length. All right, we're still a little long. I'm gonna cut off another thread. That looks good right there. That's what it'll look like. And then before you do that, cut it. Start your hole, or start to screw it in. Because sometimes you need to get the threads started. All right, let's get this guy going. Beauty, eh? All right. Now let's go ahead and get those wires off. Remember, clean your tip. A little bit of dab, some solder here, just to pull these off. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. Wipe it off. Even if you're going to use it in like 10 seconds, wipe it off. Always wipe it off. Okay. So we'll need a little bit more heat shrink. Actually, we're not going to need any heat shrink. We're going directly onto them. So let's go set those aside. Excuse me. All right. Let's get these guys stripped up. The flux, the goods. Nice little dip in there. All right. Let's go ahead and dab it up. Wipe her off. All right. So for this first one, because we don't know the polarity or which way these are going to spin, you would think that they're going to spin opposite, but again, we don't know. So I'm going to look for, on the back of these M20s, I can't tell on that one. You can kind of tell. I don't know if you guys can see it, but right here in this corner, there's a little circle there. It actually has a plus sign in there, and that's going to be your positive. So we're just going to follow that. And we're just going to go ahead and see if this will work. All right, so we got one side done. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and come back here. We're going to grab the wire that comes back, that goes back up into that bucket. And then we're going to go ahead and strip it. Strip it, we'll pull it apart. And then we're going to put it on the, we're going to throw the battery on it and see which way it's spinning. And we're hoping that they're spinning the same way, so. I'm paying attention to this right here. Okay, so it's actually spinning this way with the positive on the positive. So let's go ahead and get this one soldered up. I'm going to solder it up backwards. So red is going to go on to the black lead on this motor. All right, let's come back here, do the same thing to this guy. All right, we're gonna go positive to positive. All right. Looks good. So, excuse me. So with this setup, it was positive to positive on this motor lead, and then this one was the opposite. So we know that's done. So we'll go ahead and come back to that wiring here in a bit. But first, let's go ahead and start to get our bucket assembled and installed. So these are going to be your motor cover mounts, and then this is going to be your bucket. So go ahead and grab your M2 by 10 millimeter self-tapping screws, and you're going to go ahead and get this first side attached to this bottom, and then to this back plate, and then do the same thing here. You can see I printed this out in PETG, and PETG hates these very small, not small, but these spaces that just aren't, you know, the gaps or the distance from the wall here to this hole is only, you know, very, very small. And when I started screwing it in, it started to split this. So what I ended up doing is just gluing this. And then you got your quick change bar, I think it is. That gets glued to this back piece here. And then this actually comes off. This isn't glued either, this comes off. And what it is just this screw here. Just the one screw. Once you take that off, this will come out. And this was part of the, you know, like a quick connect feature. Unfortunately, I just haven't come out with any buckets or anything, and everything gets real tight in here, so not much room. So, but anyways, you'll see the channels here, or not the channels, but the chamfers, and then those actually go up into here. So you'd actually slide it up in, just like that, and then that. So once you get that, go ahead and screw this in. This is an M2 by 10 self-tapping. That's your bucket mount. All right, so let's go ahead and we're gonna mount these up real quick. And you'll notice that these are two opposites. So the cutout here goes towards the wires. This slot goes towards this. And we're gonna actually loosen these up a little bit, because we need to slide them back out just enough. I'll usually grab these and kind of go on the inside and squeeze it and try and pry it. There we go. Beauty. Okay. So here's our first one. We're gonna go ahead and get this on. Let me just make sure I remember how it gets installed. So they get screwed into these 3 holes here. So that's gonna be on this side here. So let's go ahead and slide that in. There's that one. And then next one. There's that. So now we're going to go ahead and grab our M2 by 10 millimeter self tapper. We're going to go ahead and get our bucket lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to start up here on these screws, so you might not be able to see it. Maybe I can lay this down actually, and you guys can see it. In theory, not too sure if that'll work. Oh, in there. These actually do not go like that. These go like that. Oh, silly. Wrong side. That's how you want it to be. Just like that. And it's going to sit like this. So let's go ahead and lay it down. Okay. Get this in there. So we're going to line up these 3 holes here with these 3 holes here. Alright, now we have our bucket installed. So let's go ahead and make sure you want to squeeze these parts together. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and tighten this down again. And what I'm tightening down, in case you can't see, is going to be those set screws inside here. Alright, just like that, we have our bucket installed. Everything looks good. So we can mess around and test it a little bit. We'll go ahead and get our wires that were set up for it. And then let's see it work. Clean up these wires. Beauty. Everything's working good here. So we can always mess around with these wires. I think what I'm gonna end up doing is I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one kind of like this to make it look like it's part of this cylinder as well. But for now we're gonna leave that. That looks great. So now let's move on to the last part, the best part. Got to clean up this whole mess here and then get all of our wires hooked up to our ESC here, or excuse me, not our ESC but our receiver. So let's get to wiring. I'm gonna first take all of our receiver leads out of the way anyways. See if we can tuck those back in here just to get out of our way for now. Alrighty, so now you gotta remember which ones are your ESCs and which ones are your motors. So we know that the motors are coming through these holes here on both sides like this. So these wires here are going to be for my motors. Right? And then these down here, down below, are going to be for my ESCs. Let's go ahead and get all these nice and soldered up, or not soldered up, but sauced up. And I'll just use my toothpick to kind of rub it on there. Looks good. Let's go ahead and grab that and your solder. And we're just gonna go ahead and just start adding solder to these wires to get them all set up and prepared. You can see I have a big old ball on there, so I'm just gonna roll it around. All right, wipe her off, clean her up. All right. Remember I said earlier we're not gonna need the solder. We're gonna need this, or the heat shrink. Definitely gonna need it. So make sure you're doing this the right wires. So I know that this is to an actuator and this is to an actuator. So we're gonna grab our heat shrink. I'm gonna put on this one because they're already long. Okay, so the heat shrink's on. Let's go ahead and start to solder these together. So get a little bit on there, a little preload, a helping hand. So it says you got to get creative with these helping hands. That looks good right there. So let's grab a little bit of solder. Okay, now we are ready to go. So let's go ahead and dap this guy. And again, you only need it for a second. Beauty. All right, there's one side. So we'll go ahead and slide our heat shrink over. Slide our heat shrink over. Remember, sometimes you got to spin that heat shrink. Just like that. Grab our lighter. All right. Sometimes too, when you're doing a bunch of wires like this and you may not be sure about where they're going to be going, it may be best to not heat this heat shrink up just yet, just in case you have to make any changes, because if I have to make any changes, that heat shrink is now wasted. So let's go ahead and get the other side of the actuators done, or actuator, excuse me. Alright. Let's see if we can bend this up a little bit. There you go. That looks good right there. So, clean off your tip. Add a little bit more. Alright. And we'll go ahead and grab the right one. I'm trying to keep it somewhat organized too, so wires from touching and stuff. So let's go ahead and grab our striped, set it on here. Sometimes you just need that helping hand. I'm not sure if you guys can see that soldering point. Let me see if I can. I want you guys to see like what it's supposed to look like. Hopefully the camera can get in on that. You don't want to see strands of wire. You kind of want it to look like one piece. And you can't really, a little harder to tell, but yeah, you want it to look like one piece. You don't want there to be little strands or anything hanging out because the solder didn't really penetrate all of it. Bada bing, bada boom. So we're hoping that I figured that out right. And the only reason why I think that is you can see the red and this red. And before I actually had those, the wires that come on the actuators, you can see them on both here and here. I cut those wires so I didn't have to mess with the joint that I had in there. So I'm assuming that that's that. We're just gonna go ahead and run with it and see if that works. So now we're gonna go ahead and tie in, I'm just gonna tuck in these wires I just did back here. Okay, so now we got these two wires left. And with these, it doesn't necessarily matter which side goes to which because they're split off of the same one. What we're going to pay attention to is, again, just making sure the stripe goes with the striped wire and then the all black goes with the black. So that's what we're going for here. So I'm gonna cut some more of these guys. Okay. Alrighty. Alright, so that's the first one. Let's go ahead and clean off our tip. Dab it up a little bit on there. And then solder these up. A little shaky this morning. Yeah, don't like that one. Blow it off just to cool it down because I couldn't get that one to stick. I added more solder on the tip and then we'll should be able to get it way better. Alright, wipe it off. Alright, let's get these next ones. Alright. Sometimes you gotta straighten out these ends too. They're just a little too curved. Wipe it off. Make sure everything looks good. I think it's looking pretty good. We got a little straggler here, so I'm gonna cut that off. All right, and that looks good. I think I can get the heat shrink over it now, so let's just see. And again, sometimes you gotta spin it. That one didn't, surprisingly. So this one spin. Sometimes you gotta play with it. There we go. Beauty. Let's go and heat them up. Oop, almost missed that one. All right. Now we got that wiring done. Now it's time to go ahead and get our ESC, or excuse me, our receiver leads. All right, one more. We're just gonna pull these out, get them kind of set to the side right now. Right, because now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of this little slack and we're gonna tuck it in to the center here. Grab my tweezers and just kind of start pushing on it like this. Just want to get those nice and tucked in. You probably have to push and just to get it all inside of here. We need to make some room for this receiver now. That should be sufficient. Okay, so the receiver, we're gonna tuck these in behind, underneath all these wires here. And it's gonna go underneath this motor. Yeah. It's actually gonna have to go through this middle part, if we can. Come on. Alright. Let's go ahead and start plugging these in. Okay, so I wanted you guys to see this as well because this is something that not a lot of people know. Okay, so when you have multiple ESCs plugged into the same receiver, you have to remember that these ESCs, the only way that this receiver is able to get any power or power on is via this red wire right here. Let's see if I can get a little closer. So this red wire inside of this receiver lead, right? This red wire is what powers that receiver, okay? So if you have, let's say you just have two ESCs, like we have here. We have two ESCs going into this receiver. On one of those ESCs, you have to remove one of those red wires in that lead, or the red wire in one of those leads, the receiver lead. Okay, if you don't do that, what's going to happen is in here, you're going to send, I don't really know how to say it, but anyways, you're going to send you're going to send twice as much voltage to this receiver than it can handle, and you'll actually burn this out. And it'll actually still work, but all your channels will start to function very improperly, and it just won't work. So Anywho, it doesn't matter which ESC you do this to, but you have to remove the red wire out of one of them and leave one in to power up that receiver. And this is going to be the same thing if you have 20 ESCs. Okay, you're still only going to leave one red wire in one of those ESCs, and in all 19 of the other ones you're going to take out the red wire. Okay, so let me see if I can find something to show you guys how to take that out, make it a little easier. Here, I'll use this guy right here. So this is just a wiring harness I had just laying in there, but it's got a lead here. So what I'll do is I'll take my tweezers here, and right in here on one of these guys, there's a little tab on all of them. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna pry it up, right? Just pry it. You don't want to break it, just pry it up enough, right, like that. And then you grab your tweezers, grab your red wire, and pull it right out. Right, and then I'll put some heat shrink on here so the metal can't touch anything. But now you've just set up that lead, or that receiver lead, to be used with this receiver and multiple ESCs. So that's how you do that, and you want to make sure that you do that with any of these any models. It doesn't matter if it's mine or Bernie's or Christian Trop's. If it uses multiple ESCs, you're going to take out all the wires except for one lead. And again, it doesn't matter which one. So let's go ahead and get everything plugged in now. When I took this apart, I actually labeled all these. So this is channel 1 here. So let's go ahead and get that plugged in. And then for orientation on these plugs, white, your channel, or this white lead right here is going to be your signal wire, right? Your signal wire always goes up, so up towards what you see here. So ground faces down towards the bottom. All right. So now we'll go ahead and see if I can plug this in. I think that's our 2. Okay, yeah, that's our 2. So when you get these little red ones, these are just signal wires, so they go up to just to the very, very top. Oh, that was 4. And then this last guy will be our channel 3. Let's see if I can get it to go around. All right, and then last but not least is going to be our light. And my work light goes into my channel 5. All right, so then what we'll do here, after you get all that plugged in, you may want to test it for your build. I already know that this is where mine's gonna go. So you can kind of just leave this in here. It should be just fine like that. And then we'll go ahead and just leave this up in there. Because what this was designed for, this battery here, 2200 35C. These dimensions were meant to, or the battery was meant to go right inside of that little channel there. And that's how it's going to that's how it sits inside. So if you guys are wondering what battery to get, this guy is our guy. I guess I should put that into the build manual. So okay, now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and finish up the last portion of this build. We're gonna grab our M2 by 5mm. These are button head Phillips head screws, and those are going to go into these holes here, and what that's going to do is lock it in to the panels here, but it's also going to give our rear door magnets something to stick onto. Make sure they all line up. Alright, so there's that. And then this door, what you're gonna do is put your, I think these are door guide or brace, I can't remember the name exactly. But go ahead and grab those pieces and then grab some M2 by 5. Let me just check. Yeah, M2 by 5s to go ahead and mount all those, and I only use the 2. But then what you're gonna do is it just goes just like that. You get a nice magnetic lock on there. I might add a couple more on there. And then this is 2 pieces, so you're gonna take your 2 pieces and then take these strips and then go ahead and get those nice and tightened in. You can see the thin parts, they just, again, sometimes when you tighten them too much, they just break, but with this part, it doesn't matter. So we'll go ahead and slide that into place, and that goes right there. And then just like that. Yeah, that should be all right. And that's that. Now we have our skid steer built. Let's just go ahead and make sure everything functions. So now you can see forward, right, left, right. Looks good too. Looks real nice. So we'll just add some more detail here. As in, when I say detail, I'm just gonna go ahead and probably wrap these kind of like this, just to make it look like it's part of those cylinders. And then I think that's it. That's pretty much all of it. And then you got your light. And then if you have your other lights, just go ahead and set up all those switches. But for right now, like I said, this is done. This fun little toy. And very satisfying once you get it done built. But like I had said earlier on the bucket, let me show you guys again. With the bucket, what I usually do, because I didn't add the end stops, I just try and remember that this is my max down here, you know, just straight up and down. And then for this one, what I'll do is I'll just pay attention to this and I'll stop right there. You know, it could probably go a little bit more, but that's probably all you want to do if you're not going to use these end stops. Let me just make sure. Let me see what I did here. Okay, another thing I did is the buckets on channel 1, I turned that channel down, my endpoints down to 50%. And that allows me to go to max, and I'm at max now and it's not locking up, it still moves. So the main goal here is to not go super fast into and slam it into there, because these N20s, you can see these gears are so tiny that, you know, if they're moving full speed and they go to a sudden stop, you have a chance of breaking one of those teeth or ruining one of them, and then you'll get these locked up. So if you just pay attention to where it's at and all that good stuff, you should have these last quite a while. These on here have lasted me a good while, and I've, you know, maxed them out, and not necessarily locked them up, but I've maxed them out and done all that as well. So just pay attention to that, and you should be able to have lots of fun for a good amount of time. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you guys learned a few things, and I hope you can get your builds completed and start having some fun. So again, thanks for tuning in. You guys take care.